Donald Trump was whisked off the stage at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, after apparent gunshots rang through the crowd. Trump was showing off a chart of border crossing numbers when bangs started ringing out. Trump could be seen reaching with his right hand towards his neck. There appeared to be blood on his face and cheek. He quickly ducked behind the podium as agents from his protective detail rushed the stage and screams rang out from the crowd. The bangs continued as agents attended to him on stage. The crowd cheered as he got back up and pumped his fist. Kenyan President William Ruto this week also announced the dismissal of almost his entire cabinet amidst consultations to form a broad-based government, following widespread anti-government protests. President Ruto said his decision will apply to all ministers, including the Attorney General, but excluded Foreign Minister Musalia Mudavadi. Shortly after, the Kenyan Chief of Police resigned, apparently as a mark of taking the bullet for his role in the high-handed attempt to suppress the protests. In a televised address to the nation, President Ruto said, "I will immediately engage in extensive consultations across different sectors and political formations and other Kenyans, both in public and private, with the aim of setting up a broad-based government." Jideofor Adibe is a professor of political science at Nasarawa State University, Kefi, and founder of Adibe Publishers. He now joins me on this program to look at these two issues quickly. Thank you very much, Professor Adibe, for joining us from our Abuja studio. Hello, Professor Adibe. Okay, we'll take a short break while we try to link up with Professor Jideofor Adibe at our Abuja studio. Well, welcome back from that short break. Professor Adibe is a professor of political science at Nasarawa State University, Kefi, and founder of Adibe Publishers. He now joins me from our Abuja studio. Professor Adibe, thank you very much for joining us. Well, President Trump, got shot.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Batia.
Yes, President Trump got shot while he was campaigning, and then the whole of America is shocked. President Biden says, he sympathizes and didn't expect that this kind of violence will happen in America. World leaders have been expressing their dismay that those will happen. An assassination attempt on, a presidential candidate, a presumptive, candidate of the Republican Party. How do you think this may well affect the presidential process ahead of the November 5 election?
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Bati. First of all, let me say that this type of violence is not very unusual in American politics, despite, what the politicians say. The first political assassination of a president was in 1865 when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. That was followed in 1881 when another president was assassinated, then 1901 when William, McKinley. Further down to, 1981 when Ronald Reagan was shot. Even as late as 2022, the husband of Nancy Pelosi, the former Speaker of the House, was also shot. And in between, there have been several other attempts that, were not successful. For example, in 1994, we know there somebody shot when Clinton was in power, shot at the White House. In 2005, when George W. Bush was there, a grenade was hurled at him while he was at a campaign rally. It didn't work. So, I mean, what I'm trying to say is now it's not very uncommon, but it's also understandable that they have to say that violence has no place in their politics. People had actually expected some violence given the level of rhetoric between the Republicans and the Democrats. How will this affect the elections? For now, it seems, at least in the short term, it will give some bounce to the Republican presidential presumptive nominee, Donald Trump. More important, if you, for example, you notice that when he was shot, he was heard saying, "Let me get my shoes," when they were trying to take him out. And then he managed to clench his fist and said, "Fight, fight, fight," 3 times. Americans like a projection of courage. They like a projection of vitality. They like a projection of defiance. And this is, if you relate it to what happened to Ronald Reagan in 1981 when he was similarly shot, he told his wife, Nancy, "Oh, honey, I forgot to duck." And then when he was sent in for emergency operation, he told the doctors, "I hope you are all Republicans." So you can understand that it's going to help the Republicans frame the masculinity of Ronald Reagan. But this is early days. Remember, I mean, you're a communication person. One thing is the event, and later what happens is how that event is handled by the spin doctors. Already, we are hearing now that, the people on the extreme left and people on the extreme right are right. They're already bringing in a lot of conspiracy theories. Some people said it was a hoax, something that Donald Trump, planned. Those on the left of the right, Republicans, in fact, Senator Vance, who is believed to be one of the senators, one of the candidates being considered as a running mate to Donald Trump, accused Biden. He said the rhetoric by the Democrats, trying to play up fear, the fear factor that if Donald Trump is elected, America's democracy will be in danger. That was what triggered that. So we don't know what really happens. In 1981, Ronald Reagan, who was shot, got re-elected, but then he was always going to win anyway. If you go back to 2012, if you go back to 1912, when another candidate was shot, Theodore Roosevelt was a cousin of Franklin Roosevelt. Despite the fact that he was shot, and then he demonstrated also that kind of masculinity, but by saying I'm as well as a bull moose. He still didn't give him the Republican nomination. He still ended up losing the nomination. So what will happen is that in the next couple of days, we will see how the spin doctors are shaping the narratives, and it's going to be a contest over narratives. But right now, the bounce will be it will give some springs. It will give some advantage to Donald Trump. Remember, the son Eric immediately posted that photograph of him with blood on his face and a clenched fist where he says, "This is the fighter America needs." So we'll see how it works out.
Well, talking about courage and masculinity, President Trump says he's going to Milwaukee tomorrow. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where, the party is supposed to nominate him as the candidate officially. But I see you've addressed the issue about conspiracy theories. Some are even saying that maybe Russia has a hand in it. Some are even saying maybe it's the Democrats who are behind it. But I think the prompt response by President Biden would seem to have tried to douse the anxiety in that regard. But let's go to Kenya. President Ruto, will he be saved by sacking everybody around him, even with the Gen Z of Kenya still saying Ruto has to go?
Well, I'm not sure. When you make such concessions, the people, the Gen Z people, as you mentioned, and other forces that are teaming up with them, will now realize that they've got you in a tight corner, and they'll go for the jugular. And I think that's what they're going to do now. Yeah, people say it is a sign that Ruto listens. We see how it works out. It works both ways. Now you have won the concession, and they've said already, no, what we want is no less than you going. And he has to give all manner of concessions to save his job. But whether these concessions will spur the Gen Zs more, it's what we don't know for sure. I'm very, very surprised that because if it were in Nigeria, they would have organized counter protests. Not that they are not trying, and then played on our traditional fault lines and blamed some people for trying to overthrow the government and bringing people with loud voices to amplify such narratives. But I think what is also happening in Kenya should be a lesson to other African leaders, including our own country, that there is an extent to which you push, certain things will push people, and they will close rank. Remember when there was, in 2012, I believe, under Jonathan, no, not 2012, under Jonathan, when they had this shut down Nigeria. Initially, the ruling party thought that it would be very easy for them to break their ranks, and people were unified. And for a considerable length of time, they held on, in protest against the increase in the pump price of premium spirit. But we see how it goes. It's, the situation in Kenya is something many people are watching to see whether the Gen Zs will be pacified. I don't think they will. I think they will believe they've got him on a tight corner, and they'll go for the finishing punch.
Okay, finally, I mean, there's this point. Some commentators are saying that the United States is now beginning to look like a third world country with this latest development. Do you think that they have a case to make in that regard, or that this is just speculative, talk?
I don't know what you mean by looking like that. What you can say is that what democracy is temporarily receding in many countries in the West. I would say use the word temporarily advisedly, because the democratic space is elastic. Sometimes it contracts, especially in the Western world, sometimes it expands. In the case of Donald Trump, the American society is polarized in the middle between those forces that are seen as, isolationist forces, people you can call anti-globalists, and Joe Biden. And these are, for the first time, these are a fight between two camps, that are represented by two elderly men. I don't think there's anything to say that it's third world. They're beginning to use some terms that we use here, like Donald Trump believing the election was rigged. That's what you can call a quote-unquote third world nomenclature. Other than that, there is nothing. Election everywhere in the world is regarded as war without weapons or war without bullets. So it tends to be very, very polarizing. But you'll also notice that for Americans, after the elections, they tend to unite. I give you an example of Donald Trump. After that January invasion on the Capitol Hill, the Republican Party became so polarized that people thought it was finished. And despite all the challenges Donald Trump has had, he came out and was still able to unify the Republican Party behind his candidacy. We are now going to see what happens. So it's still that the right and the left, the Republican and the Conservative. In the end, the basis of statehood remains settled. Unlike in our own society, where if such a thing happens in African society, where the basis of nationhood, where the basis of statehood remains contested, then it will be a danger even for the state itself.
Well, on that note, I would like to thank you very much, Professor Jideofor Adibe, for joining us.